Your listening room acoustics is the most important factor, along with your speakers, in determining how good your hi-fi system is going to sound. So before you decide to upgrade your speakers or your amplifier, consider spending some time understanding room acoustics. Most of us may not be realizing the full potential of our hi-fi systems without some simple acoustic treatment. And this treatment doesn't have to be extravagantly expensive. Even modest acoustic treatment at strategic places can make a huge difference. In this video, I will share with you the importance of acoustic room treatment in a high-fidelity stereo setup, explaining some basic acoustic principles in simple terms, leaving out technical jargon. Most importantly, I can tell you how to treat your listening room in the most simplest manner and reduce unwanted reflections so that more of the direct sound from the speakers reaches you, improving clarity, instrument separation, and vocal articulation. So let's begin by first discussing some aspects of acoustics in an enclosed space. Sound is created by vibrations that cause pressure variations in a medium like air or water. These pressure variations propagate outwards as waves. Sound travels outwards from a source in all directions, radiating like waves on a pond rather than in a straight line. When sound is produced by speakers in a room, it doesn't travel in a straight line directly to the listeners. Instead, it interacts with the environment in complex ways. Understanding these interactions is crucial to controlling and improving room acoustics. Let's talk about how direct and reflected sound complicate life for a hi-fi enthusiast. Direct sound is obvious. It's the sound that travels straight from the speakers to the listener without interference. But since we don't listen to music in anechoic chambers, which believe me is not pleasant, we have to deal with the combined effects of direct and reflected sound. Reflected sound occurs when sound waves bounce off of walls, ceilings, floor, and furniture before reaching the listener. These reflections can cause time delays, phase cancellations, and frequency distortions. In an untreated room, excessive reflections can lead to comb filtering, echo reverb, standing waves, and bass resonances. Let's talk about each of those effects in simple terms. Number one, comb filtering. Comb filtering in hi-fi application is a type of interference that happens when the sound arrives at a listener through two or more different paths with a slight delay between them. The result is a pattern of constructive and destructive interference that affects the frequency response. That is to say that some frequencies are boosted and others are cancelled, creating a series of peaks and dips that look like the teeth of a comb when visualized on a frequency graph. That's where the strange name comes from. Echo and reverb. Echo and reverb are both reflections of sound, but they behave differently and affect how we perceive space, clarity, and realism in hi-fi audio. To break this down just a little bit, echo is a distinct, delayed repetition of a sound. You hear the original sound, then clearly a separate copy of it. Time delay is typically greater than 50 milliseconds. You can clearly identify the original sound and the reflection as two separate events. This happens in large, untreated rooms with bare walls or high ceilings. Reverberation is the persistent of sound after the original source has stopped, caused by many closely spaced reflections blending together. Time delay is typically less than 50 milliseconds between reflections. You would perceive reverb as a smooth decay of sound, not separate echoes, just a sense of the room's size and character. This is a natural phenomenon in all rooms. In hi-fi, controlled reverb adds realism, like hearing a symphony in a concert hall. Too much reverb, though, that muddies detail and imaging. It's very common in rooms with hard reflective surfaces, which is how most conventional rooms are. Now let's talk about standing waves and bass resonance. They are big players in how the low end behaves in a hi-fi listening room. When they're not managed properly, they can mess with bass clarity, timing, and accuracy. Standing waves are low frequency waves that build up between pairs of parallel walls, floors, and ceilings. They occur when reflected sound waves align with the original wave in such a way that they reinforce or cancel each other. In very simple language, this is how it works. Sound bounces between walls, and when the distance between the surfaces matches a multiple of a wavelength, it creates constructive and destructive interference. At certain points in the room, you get peaks where bass is too loud or nulls where bass disappears. This creates a patchy bass response that depends on where you're sitting to listen. They are most pronounced at low frequencies, say below 200 Hz. Strongest between parallel surfaces, front and back walls, floor, ceiling, left and right walls. They're also called room modes. They can make bass sound boomy, one note, or thin depending on the spot. What is bass resonance then? Bass resonance is closely tied to standing waves, but it refers more generally to how certain frequencies linger on and get exaggerated in the room. It can be caused by furniture or walls vibrating sympathetically. Also, a bit about early reflections and their impact on sound. Early reflections are those that bounce off of nearby surfaces within milliseconds of the direct sound, causing smearing of details in the music. This results in a lack of stereo imaging and precision and brightness, an artificial brightness or harshness in sound, reduced clarity in vocals and instrument separation. To combat this, strategically placed acoustic treatment is necessary. So we just covered some aspects of the combined effects of direct and reflected sound in enclosed spaces and how it can mess with your pursuit of hi-fi sound. You may argue that with tone controls or an equalizer or DSP in combination with a measurement mic, you can correct any situation. But that's simply not true. You would be guessing without measurement. Even with measurement, you would be turning down or shelving only amplitudes of the affected frequency bands if you're using parametric equalizers. It is only with advanced DSPs, with suites like Dirac, etc., that you can make some impactful corrections, as you have to actively manipulate in real time more than just amplitudes of several frequencies. You can achieve some of it with modules from, say, Mini DSP and free software like Room Equalization Wizard or REW, or paid software like Dirac. But this means converting all your analog source signals to digital, manipulating the signal in the digital domain, and then converting back to analog after this processing. So the advanced DSP you are using better have top-notch analog to digital and digital to analog converters excellent calibrated measurement microphones and high processing power to handle complicated software suites that compute and execute corrections in real time. I have tried these by using Mini DSP, REW, Behringer Active Loudspeaker DSP management systems with some success, mainly in the low bass to mid bass regions. But in my humble opinion, rather than employing electronic systems to actively control sound, to me it seems more effective to first invest some time and energy with passive acoustic room treatments. In my case, the impact to sound quality was more pronounced for a modest expense. So let's now discuss passive acoustic room treatments. Broadly speaking, room acoustics issues can be addressed with three main types of treatment: absorption, diffusion, and bass management. Absorbers reduce reflections and excess reverberation by converting sound energy into heat through friction. A few types of absorbers are foam panels. These are lightweight and effective for mid to high frequencies, but not sufficient for bass. Fiberglass or rock wool panels. These are more effective than foam due to higher density. And fabric wrapped acoustic panels. These are most effective and often used in professional studios for controlling early reflections. A very good example is this product from Acoustics that I use in my listening room for absorbing first reflections on sidewalls. It's called the freestanding bass trap. It is thick enough for low-end absorption as well. Thinner panels are also available if you want to spend less money. Where should you place these absorbers? For the most cost-effective and immediate impact, place them at the first reflection points. Address the sidewalls and ceiling where sound first reflects. The sound that bounces off the floor can also benefit from absorption, but there is only so much you can do, like having thick rugs or carpet in normal situations. Let us tackle sidewall reflections first. Here you can use what's called the mirror technique. Imagine my palms are your left and right speakers, here and here. You sit in the listening position, which is roughly at the apex of an equilateral or isosceles triangle formed by your left and right speakers and your listening chair. You will need a friend or a family member to help you here. These are your speakers. Have them stand with a mirror on one side of the speakers. Speakers, friend, you in your listening chair. Have the other person start on one side with a mirror up and move from the side of the speaker parallel to the side wall and away from the speaker towards you. And stop when you see the reflection of the speaker. Mark the spot. Place your first absorption panel here. Now, have them move away from that speaker parallel to the wall towards you. When you see the reflection of the other speaker, stop. Mark the spot and place your next absorption panel here. Now, repeat the same thing for the other side. Now about ceiling reflections. If you have tiled drop ceilings, it becomes easier. Replace the ones that you have halfway between your speakers and your listening chair with acoustic drop ceilings. You can find these at local home improvement stores like Home Depot. They're inexpensive and quite effective for high frequency absorption. Just treating the sidewall first reflections and ceiling first reflections will bring immense improvements. It really made me appreciate my reference hi-fi system even more. For more benefits, you can place absorption panels behind the listening position to reduce late reflections and echoes. If you have a smaller room, these can go on the walls behind you. But for most people, such acoustic room treatments start encroaching on available space, and your significant other may not be appreciative of that fact. If your speakers are close to the front wall, placing absorption panels on the front wall behind the speakers helps with clarity by absorbing excess reflections. But if you have your speakers pulled out well away from the front wall of say 4 to 6 feet, then they may not make too much of an impact. Now, if you have massive high-end speakers and have the means and the green light from your partner of going all out on acoustic room treatments, then you are really lucky and the audio gods love you, and you should consider diffusers and bass traps. Now let's talk diffusers. They help in enhancing soundstage and natural ambience. Diffusion scatters sound waves instead of absorbing them, preserving the room's liveliness while reducing harsh reflections at the same time. Some examples of diffusers are quadratic diffusers, which are designed with mathematically spaced wells to scatter sound evenly. Polycylindrical diffusers, which are curved panels that spread sound waves naturally. You can place diffusers on the back wall, behind the listening position to enhance depth and spaciousness, on your ceiling to minimize vertical reflections in high ceiling rooms, and your sidewalls to create a more immersive stereo field. Now, these are typically quite expensive. If you have full range speakers that produce prodigious amounts of low bass energy, then bass traps are your friend. Bass frequencies are the hardest to control due to their long wavelengths. Bass traps absorb these low frequencies to prevent boomy or uneven bass. Most effective are corner bass traps. Placed in room corners where bass buildup is most severe. There are also broadband bass traps. These absorb a wider range of frequencies, including mid-bass, like the standing bass traps I talked about earlier. Placing bass traps on corners, trihedral junctions they're called, where 3 room boundaries meet, wall-wall and wall-ceiling junctions, are the best to prevent standing waves. Again, these bass traps are really expensive and they're usually very heavy and massive in size because you need mass for bass traps. They can be very cumbersome and sometimes too dang ugly for normal people to deal with. Now, even with the best acoustic treatment, speaker placement and listener positioning plays a crucial role. Avoid placing speakers too close to the walls to prevent excessive bass reflections. Toe and angle. Angling speakers towards the listening position improves stereo imaging. Symmetry. Ensuring both speakers have a symmetrical room layout helps maintain balance. We don't always have that luxury. Like I said earlier in the video, addressing the first reflection points on the sidewalls and ceiling will definitely improve clarity and detail. Attack them first. Reducing unwanted reflections allows more direct sound to reach the listener, improving clarity, instrument separation, and vocal articulation. If you add diffusers, you will also improve stereo imaging and soundstage. With reduced early reflections and diffused late reflections, the soundstage will feel more three-dimensional with precise instrument positioning. Using bass traps will help by controlling standing waves and bass resonances. So there it is. Room acoustics play a fundamental role in how a stereo system performs. Without proper acoustic treatment, even the highest quality speakers and amplifiers will fail to deliver an accurate and immersive listening experience. For those serious about high fidelity audio, investing in acoustic treatment is just as important as investing in quality components. If you're interested in reviews about high quality speakers, here is a playlist. If you want to learn more about how to select an amplifier, here's another playlist. Let me know what else you'd like me to discuss about hi-fi in the comments below.